Our next storyteller has a very interesting CV. He's done so many things. Vince Ford has been a jackaroo. He's worked in the salt mines of Australia and led four-wheel drive trips through the sand dunes of the Middle East. He's also an award-winning author with 16 novels for children and teens under his belt. Is there anything that this guy can't do? But he says that his most rewarding role has been as a stay-at-home dad, learning and growing alongside his daughter as his wife pursued her career. However, he's recently found his calling, writing and speaking around the theme of human connection. And tonight, we'll have an example of what he means by that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Vince Ford.
Dad asked me to give him a hand fixing a fence. I thought it was because I was 16 and I was finding some use around the place. But that's not what he had in mind. He's a man of few words, but partway through the job he stopped, leaned on a post. Vince, you know, you can do or be anything you want to do or be. And we'll love and support you no matter what that is. And that was a gift. Dad passed away earlier this year, but knowing I had his love and support enabled me to become the person that I am today. I met my wife Ondi, short for Andrea, when I was in my 20s. Now she's gorgeous, but you wouldn't know that she's 6 years older than I am. We waited to have kids till we were a little bit older, and we tried and tried and tried, and we had a lot of fun, but no kids. So we tried IVF. We went along to the clinic, and Ondi's in the stirrups. I'm holding her hand. It's not as much fun as a candlelit dinner. The nurse was having a hard time. She dropped the pipette with my swim team. She dropped the speculum. She got another pipette, another speculum, but this one didn't have the little light on it, and she only had 2 hands. I ended up holding the torch. It was a difficult procedure. She was having problems. I offered advice. You've had your turn, sunshine. And with every round of IVF, our hopes started to rise. And every time they were dashed. We went to see an adoption social worker. Her name was Breeder. She asked us some questions. Would you consider twins? How do you feel about open adoption? Have you thought about a sports car instead? Save yourself some cash. And we got on the adoption wait list, and we waited. And every time the phone rang, we thought that could be Breeder telling us there was a baby to pick up. And for 2 years we waited, and that phone never rang. And that was tough. Ondi suffered depression. She finished her job, and we gave up on our dream of having kids. And we ended up having that romantic candlelit dinner, and Ondi fell pregnant. We went to antenatal classes, and it was great because there were some people there our age. They were really looking forward to being grandparents. And we had a beautiful baby girl, and we called him Matia, which means blessing. When Matia was 2, Ondi got a great job in Wellington, and she used to fly down on a Monday, and she'd come back on the weekend. And I got to be a stay-at-home dad. And we didn't go to the mums' coffee groups because we weren't invited. But I hung out at home with my girl, and I taught her to paint a picture, and to pick the passion fruit, and to pee in the paddock. And when Matia was 3, Ondi got a job in the Emirates, and we all went over there. And I looked after my girls, and I wrote when I could, and I drove in the sand dunes and in the mountains of Oman whenever I could. We moved home when Matia was 9. And she was a great kid, but she was a little bit of a hypochondriac. If someone got the flu, she thought she had the flu. If someone had nits, she thought she had nits. A classmate was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. She thought she had type 1 diabetes. And then she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. She was admitted to hospital, and the doctor came in and sat on a bed. And she said, "You know, Matia, you've got to be really careful with your blood sugars. If they could go too high, they could damage the blood vessels in your feet. You could lose a leg. If your blood sugars go high, they could damage the blood vessels in your eyes. You could go blind. But if your blood vessels go too low, you could die." Marty was traumatised. We all were. I used to get up at night and prick her finger and check her blood sugars a couple of times a night. And at one point she was getting really tired, and she took a day off school, and I went in to check her blood sugars, and she wasn't in her bed. There was a sliver of light coming from a wardrobe. She was sitting on the floor, cuddling a teddy bear, reading a book with a torch. She was afraid that if she went to sleep, she might not wake up again. But we learnt to manage her blood sugars. If they're high, we give insulin. If they're low, we give fruit juice. I remember going to hockey one day, and we accidentally gave too much insulin. We arrived at the game, and the parents are giving their kids hugs and encouragement. I'm giving her a large carton of juice and saying, "You're not going on until you've finished it." She's a teenager now, and she's got a CGM that sits on her tummy, and it sends a signal and tells us what her blood sugars are. And if they're elevated, I get an alarm on my phone. How good is that? An app that tells you your teenager's high. But she's 17 now, and she's got her licence, so I don't have to drive around and pick her up from hockey and drop her off. And she manages her diabetes beautifully. And she'll be leaving home soon. But the one thing I want to make sure she knows is that she is loved. Because it's a small thing, but I believe it's the foundation that everything else is built on. It's the legacy that my father passed on to me, and maybe one day she'll pass that on to her children. It's a good thing that she's here tonight. Matia, you know you can do or be anything you want to do or be. And we'll love and support you, no matter what that is.